Death is not a fairy tale, an abstract philosophy, or a blind belief. It is a complex and hauntingly logical system, built brick by brick with the coldness of a scientist and the precision of a surgeon. The fear is rooted in the belief, the greatest lie according to Spiritism, that our consciousness, the intricate tapestry of our memories, our capacity for deep love, and the very essence of our individual identity could simply be extinguished, vanishing into a cold, meaningless void, thereby rendering all our struggles, triumphs, and affections utterly worthless. For all of recorded history, humanity has struggled to resolve this existential crisis, finding fleeting comfort in ancient myths, abstract philosophical conjecture, or the solace of blind religious faith, none of which have fully succeeded in silencing the persistent, existential whisper of, "What if it's all for nothing?" Allan Kardec, however, approached this millennia-old question not as a theologian seeking faith, but as a scientist demanding evidence. His work, The Codification of the Spiritist Doctrine, is a radical redefinition of mortality. He presents death not as a capricious end, but as an indispensable and precisely engineered mechanism operating within an eternal cosmic order, a system of profound and astonishing logic constructed with the meticulousness of an engineer and the impartiality of natural law. Kardec asserts that the greatest liberation lies in understanding that death is merely a change of state, the ultimate portal of transit within an ongoing, infinite journey. When this grand design is truly comprehended, when the intricate rules of the spiritual universe are grasped, the fear of the unknown is pulverized, replaced by an awareness of the self as an immortal principle, finally revealing the magnificent, often obscured purpose that underpins our seemingly brief and fragile lives on the material plane. To embark on this journey of understanding is to commit to seeing reality not through the limited lens of the physical senses, but through the infinite scope of the spirit, where ignorance is the only true source of terror. The man who eventually became known globally as Allan Kardec was born Hippolyte Léon Denisard Rivail, a figure deeply rooted in the rationalist and scientific currents of 19th century France. Far from being an uncritical mystic, Rivail was, first and foremost, an internationally respected educator, linguist, and author of pedagogical works, possessing a formidable intellect trained in the rigorous disciplines of mathematics, physics, and logic. His scientific background and relentless demand for empirical proof became the ultimate guarantor of the Spiritist doctrine's authenticity. His involvement began in the 1850s, when Europe and America were captivated by the bewildering phenomenon of the rapping tables, furniture moving, lifting, and seemingly communicating through sounds. Rivail initially regarded these events with the skeptical detachment of a true scientist, viewing them potentially as mere optical illusions, fraud, or collective hysteria. He was drawn into the phenomenon reluctantly, but his scientific integrity demanded that he observe and analyze what others were either blindly accepting or foolishly dismissing. He refused to be swayed by popular emotion or isolated incidents. Instead, he applied to these spiritual communications the very same brutal methodology he would use when studying a chemical reaction or a biological system. His method was the key. He drafted specific, controlled questions and distributed them to a wide network of mediums across different countries and social strata. He then subjected the thousands of received answers to a stringent process of universal concordance and comparative analysis. Any communication that proved contradictory, frivolous, self-serving, or morally inconsistent was immediately rejected. Kardec only accepted as truth those principles that were repeatedly, consistently, and logically affirmed by the spirits across multiple independent sources. This painstaking, decade-long process ensured that the resulting doctrine was codified not upon the fleeting testimony of a single medium or prophet, but upon the solid empirical foundation of repeated observation and rational verification, establishing Spiritism as a rational science and philosophy rather than just another blind faith. The foundation of Kardec's entire cosmology is the definition of the human being as a complex, triune entity composed of three distinct principles that are intimately linked during incarnation. At the core is the spirit, the eternal, intellectual, and moral principle, the true permanent individuality. The spirit is an individualized spark of divine intelligence, possessing the capacity for thought, will, and feeling, and it is the subject of constant, necessary evolution towards perfection. The spirit is uncreated and indestructible. It existed before the physical body and remains lucid after the body's cessation. Encasing and connecting the spirit is the perispirit, an indispensable intermediate body. This is a subtle, fluidic, semi-material envelope, composed of refined matter drawn from the universal cosmic fluid, shaped and refined by the moral state of the inhabiting spirit. The perispirit acts as the vital bridge, the vehicle of transmission, between the high vibrational nature of the pure spirit and the dense physical matter of the body. It serves multiple crucial functions. It provides the spirit with its individualized form after death, retains all memories and consciousness from all past lives, and acts as the template for the physical body, influencing its health and shape. More significantly, it is the perispirit that receives and transmits the spirit's impulses to the nerves and muscles of the physical body, enabling feeling and movement, and conversely, it transmits external sensations, pain, temperature, etc., from the physical senses back to the spirit. Finally, there is the physical body, the densest and most ephemeral of the three components. It is merely the temporary vestment or tool chosen by the spirit for its specific lessons on the material plane. The physical body provides necessary constraints, forces the spirit to interact with gross matter, and acts as the crucial crucible for the development of virtues like patience and discipline. Understanding this tripartite structure is the first step in dismantling the fear of death, as it demonstrates with clarity that the loss of the physical component does not equate to the annihilation of the two essential, persistent components, the spirit and its immediate envelope, the perispirit. In the Spiritist philosophical framework, the moment of death, the cessation of the physical organism, is fundamentally transformed from an irreversible catastrophe into a simple, natural, and logical act of liberation. Kardec teaches that the physical body is never the ultimate dwelling of the soul, but rather a temporary, necessary prison or a restrictive chrysalis designed to provide specific constraints and lessons. The spirit, by its very essence, is expansive, mobile, and yearns for the boundless freedom of its native dimension. Its incarnation in the dense material body is a self-imposed exile, necessary for learning and moral purification, but nonetheless a limitation. The event of death simply signifies the definitive rupture of the fluidic bond that binds the perispirit to the physical body. This connection, often referred to metaphorically as the silver cord, is severed, not violently but systematically, allowing the spirit to withdraw and reassert its full, unconstrained awareness. This process removes the entire existential foundation for the fear of mortality, because the intrinsic self, the consciousness, the emotional capacity, the entire archive of memories remains utterly intact, encapsulated within the perispirit. The relief experienced by the released spirit is often described as profound, akin to casting off heavy chains or awakening from a bewildering dream into a state of heightened lucidity and mobility, where thought instantly translates into action and movement. The physical body, having served its temporal purpose, is merely shed, returning to the elements, while the spirit reclaims its natural state of being. The terror associated with death, therefore, is exposed as a product of materialist ignorance. For the greatest life, the true life, begins precisely when the physical life ends. The experience of disembodiment or désincarnation is a meticulously ordered process governed by spiritual laws, and its quality is never random. It is an immediate and precise reflection of the spirit's moral state achieved during its incarnation. For a spirit that dedicated its life to cultivating virtues, practicing selfless love, caritas, detachment from earthly possessions, and a fervent pursuit of moral progress, the transition is characterized by sublime peace. The separation of the perispirit from the material body is experienced with gentle, blissful serenity, often likened to slipping from a restless sleep into a state of exquisite, pure wakefulness and freedom. The spirit finds itself immediately welcomed and lucid, surrounded by spiritual guides and loved ones who aid its transition into the higher spheres. However, the experience is radically different for the spirit, who lived in relentless pursuit of material pleasures, consumed by bitter egoism, hatred, and the pursuit of power. For them, the separation can be agonizing and drawn out. Their own heavy, dense spiritual vibration creates an intense, almost physical magnetic adhesion to the physical body and the material plane they refuse to abandon. This attachment causes prolonged confusion, disorientation, and suffering, sometimes keeping them anchored to the vicinity of their decomposing remains or earthly possessions for extended periods. This anguish is critical to understand. It is not a preordained punishment inflicted by God, but the self-created consequence of their moral choices. The act of death acts as an impartial catalyst, forcing the spirit to confront the moral reality it constructed during life, revealing its true state, be it one of peace and lightness or of turbulence and spiritual density. Thus, the effort to live an ethical, loving life is the only genuine preparation for a peaceful death. The doctrine of reincarnation stands as the unshakable foundation for understanding the absolute justice and infinite compassion of God, rendering the single-life doctrine morally untenable. Kardec argued logically that believing in a just creator, while simultaneously accepting that one short, imperfect human life, often curtailed by circumstance, poverty, or early death, is the soul's only chance to achieve perfection and eternal beatitude, is an intellectual and moral absurdity. Such a scenario would create unbearable inequalities at the very moment of creation, condemning vast numbers of souls simply because they lacked the time, opportunity, or resources available to others. Reincarnation provides the only rational solution to this dilemma, establishing itself as a fundamental law of progressive evolution. It mandates an uninterrupted, necessary sequence of existences, offering the spirit countless opportunities to correct errors from past lives, to revisit unfinished lessons, and to develop the specific virtues that were neglected or actively undermined in previous incarnations. It ensures that every single soul, regardless of its starting point or the severity of its past mistakes, is granted the time and the context required to move from the state of primitive ignorance toward the final glorious goal of moral and intellectual perfection. Reincarnation is thus an act of supreme mercy and fairness, transforming past failures into future curriculum, guaranteeing that all suffering and all effort ultimately serve a constructive evolutionary purpose and that no soul is ever left eternally behind. The concept of reincarnation necessitates viewing each material existence not as a random event, but as a meticulously prepared apprenticeship or classroom specifically tailored to the spirit's evolutionary needs. The immense array of physical limitations, personal challenges, relationship conflicts, and material deprivations encountered on Earth are therefore not mere cruelties of fate, but essential educational tools. The spirit, in the lucid interval between incarnations and guided by elevated mentors, actively participates in the planning of its next life's curriculum, choosing the most effective probations, tests of virtue, and expiations, reparations for past errors, required for its next step in moral growth. For instance, a spirit previously prideful might choose an incarnation marked by humbling poverty or chronic illness to cultivate patience and simplicity. Similarly, a spirit who inflicted injustice might choose a life where it experiences similar suffering, thereby learning empathy and the true weight of its past actions, the law of cause and effect. This knowledge transforms our perspective on suffering. It is never random or punitive, but always pedagogical. Suffering is the powerful, inevitable mechanism that breaks the spirit's attachments to ephemeral matter, forces the development of latent virtues, like resignation and faith, and purifies the moral imperfections that impede spiritual progress. Thus, every single difficulty, every relationship, and every loss becomes a unique, precious lesson designed by the spirit itself for its own ultimate benefit, ensuring that the time spent in the material body is never wasted. The spiritual plane, or the spiritual world, is the vast, dynamic, and permanent home of the spirit, which it visits between its necessary sojourns in the physical body. Kardec received extensive communications detailing this realm, confirming that it is not a monolithic, static location, but a multidimensional reality that coexists and interpenetrates the physical world, separated only by varying degrees of fluidic density and vibration. This world is organized hierarchically, ranging from lower, darker zones inhabited by suffering, morally dense spirits, analogous to the traditional concept of hell, but temporary and self-created, to the brilliant, higher spheres inhabited by pure and advanced spirits. When the spirit disembodies, it returns to the sector corresponding precisely to its moral and intellectual state, adhering to the fundamental law of attraction by affinity. The spiritual plane is characterized by intense activity. It is a place for rest, recovery, and continued intellectual and moral work. Spirits engage in complex studies, participate in governing the physical world, assist in the incarnation plans of others, and most importantly, they experience joyful reunion with their spiritual family and loved ones who have transitioned before them. This realm functions as the strategic headquarters for the entire evolutionary journey. Here, the spirit reviews the successes and failures of its just concluded life, gains a lucid understanding of the consequences of its actions, and, in counsel with superior spirits, meticulously plans the circumstances and trials of its next mandatory incarnation, ensuring its continuous, purposeful advancement. The phenomenon of mediumship, rigorously investigated by Kardec and documented in the Medium's book, constitutes the most powerful empirical proof that consciousness and individuality survive the physical death of the body. Mediumship is not a mystical ability or a supernatural gift, but a natural, organic faculty possessed in varying degrees by all human beings, an attunement of the perispirit that allows the communication of thoughts and influences between the incarnate and disincarnate worlds. The spirits, possessing their full intellectual and emotional faculties, utilize mediums as temporary instruments to transmit messages, demonstrate their continuity of life, and offer guidance to those they left behind. Kardec established stringent criteria for judging the authenticity and seriousness of these communications. The motive must always be elevated: consolation, instruction, moral upliftment. The content must be consistent with the universal teachings received from other sources, and the medium must be dedicated to serious moral work. This constant communication network proves that the ties of affection are eternal. Loved ones who have departed are in fact often closer than we realize, influencing our lives, witnessing our actions, and ready to assist us from the spiritual dimension. The evidence provided through mediumship, specific details about shared secrets, confirmation of events only the deceased could know, and profound philosophical insights, systematically demolishes the materialist claim that the spirit is annihilated with the dissolution of the brain, establishing the certainty of survival on a basis of observed, repeatable fact. If we accept the truth of our own immortality and the principle of necessary reincarnation, the single most urgent and profound warning left by Allan Kardec is a powerful indictment of a life wasted. He teaches that the true object of our fear should never be the inevitable physical death, but rather the catastrophic spiritual consequences of a life ill-spent, an existence consumed by sterile egoism, bitter indifference, or destructive passion. Our time in the physical body, though a mere fragment of our eternal journey, is a precious, concentrated opportunity to accelerate our moral refinement through the trials unique to the material plane. This time, once past, cannot be reclaimed in its specific context. The state of peace or anguish experienced immediately after disembodiment is not a reward or punishment handed down by an external deity. It is the direct, proportional result of the moral substance we actively built into our character during life. Every choice, every unselfish act, every suppressed thought of anger, every moment of kindness, all are subtle, energetic bricks added to the foundation of our spiritual dwelling. A life lived in vice builds a prison of suffering upon separation. A life dedicated to selfless service constructs a mansion of light and peace. The final warning, therefore, is one of urgency and immediate responsibility. The moment of death does not wait for us to reform. It simply holds up a mirror to the soul's current condition. The only way to guarantee a smooth, joyful transition is to dedicate every single moment of the present life to active, practical moral purification and the relentless practice of virtue. The ultimate measure of a spirit's progress and the essential key to guaranteeing a serene passage from the material to the spiritual world is the relentless, practical exercise of charity, understood in its vast, philosophical, and truly gospel sense. Kardec stressed that this supreme virtue is far more encompassing than merely giving money or alms to the poor. It is, in its perfect form, a comprehensive moral mandate summarized by 3 intertwined actions. First, benevolence toward everyone, which means sincerely and actively wishing the greatest good and happiness for all beings, without exception, judgment, or bias. Second, indulgence for the imperfections of others, which requires patient tolerance, a refusal to condemn, and a willingness to excuse the faults and weaknesses of our neighbors, understanding that they are still evolving. And third, forgiveness of offenses, which is the unconditional eradication of resentment, bitterness, and the desire for vengeance from the heart. This 3-part virtue is the practical application of the law of love, taught by Christ and affirmed by the superior spirits. It is the defining marker of a truly advanced soul, as it demonstrates the transcendence of egoism and the complete dominion over base passions. No amount of fasting, prayer, intellectual knowledge, or ceremonial observance can ever compensate for the lack of active, sincere charity toward one's neighbor. It is the only currency of the spirit. It determines the altitude of the spheres we will inhabit upon disembodiment, the peace we will experience, and the speed of our further evolution. To practice charity is, quite simply, to live in continuous preparation for the glorious spiritual awakening. Within the Spiritist framework, the phenomenon of suffering in all its forms, be it physical illness, financial ruin, or the agonizing loss of a loved one, is radically reinterpreted. It is never viewed as an arbitrary punishment meted out by a wrathful God, but rather as an indispensable pedagogical tool and an essential mechanism for the acceleration of the Spirit's progress. When the Spirit plans its incarnation, it often chooses the very trials and adversities that will most effectively purify its moral character and help settle its karmic debts from previous existences. For example, the pain of poverty compels the Spirit to develop resilience and humility. The affliction of severe illness forces the practice of patience and resignation, and the injustice suffered at the hands of others provides the perfect context for the ultimate lesson of forgiveness. Suffering, when met with patience and resignation, not passive despair but active acceptance of its instructive purpose, acts as the forge that tempers the soul, burning away the dross of egoism, pride, and material attachment. It is the most powerful catalyst for spiritual growth, forcing the spirit to turn inward and seek strength in its own divine origin. Viewed this way, adversity loses its terror and gains profound meaning. It is an indication that the spirit is engaged in a necessary process of purification, transforming pain from a meaningless curse into a powerful, self-chosen blessing designed for its ultimate eternal elevation. This understanding is the key to enduring the unavoidable challenges of life without bitterness or revolt. The certainty of our own immortality and the fundamental truth of the law of reincarnation, as meticulously documented by Allan Kardec, lead to a conclusion that is simultaneously awe-inspiring and intensely practical. Death is definitively stripped of its power as a terrifying final event. It is revealed as nothing more than a necessary cyclical evaluation, a natural and momentary checkpoint in an endless process of progressive existence. It is not an arbitrary event that strikes us from the outside, but the direct, proportional, and logical consequence of the moral and intellectual development we achieved within the constraints of the physical body. If intellectual knowledge is the indispensable key that frees our minds from the bondage of existential terror, then active, tireless moral action, the selfless practice of charity and justice, is the only indispensable doorway that leads us into an existence of perpetual peace, genuine purpose, and escalating spiritual happiness. The Spiritist doctrine is therefore not merely a theological position to be debated, but a detailed, practical roadmap for living. It empowers every individual to transform personal suffering into wisdom, to view every temporary loss as a guaranteed spiritual reunion deferred, and to utilize every single, fleeting moment of life as a precious opportunity to construct the state of peace and luminosity that will be awaiting the soul immediately upon its transition. At the final physical moment, the spirit departs carrying only 2 things that retain any eternal significance: the knowledge it accumulated and the measure of love it managed to give away. This is the only enduring wealth that survives the grave. The assurance of God's perfect justice through reincarnation and the certainty of continuous life grants us the ultimate agency. We are the master architects of our fate, and if we are disappointed with the structure of our present existence, the boundless mercy of the Creator guarantees us the opportunity to begin the grand project anew in the next life, having learned from all our previous mistakes. This realization offers the profound empowerment of eternal hope, dispelling all fear and compelling us toward a life of profound moral purpose.